was your first time reading Dragon Ball mangas?
Oh, that was already high school for me. Yeah. What's funny though is a lot of, like I grew up in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and a lot of us grew up with Japanese things without even knowing they were Japanese until way later. Because we just watched cartoons. Right. And cartoons in Argentina in the 80s meant cartoons from the US, from Europe, and from Japan. But they just had a name in Spanish, and they all spoke in Spanish. So we had no idea. We're just watching cartoons, So there's some we liked and some we didn't like that much. But so we had Tom and Jerry and like all the stuff that American kids at the same time, like in the 80s, what they were watching. But then we had Japanese ones too that were even older cartoons. So my first ever robot action cartoon was actually a Japanese one. It was Mazinga Z, which is, Mazinger Z. We called it Mazinger Zeta in Spanish, right? And we had no idea what a Mazinger was or whatever. We didn't know it was Japanese. But it was awesome. We watched it. We talk about it in school, like in recess, like every day. And it was your classic giant robot cartoon. It's the first one I ever saw. It blew my mind. Yeah. And we knew it wasn't made in Argentina just because we couldn't read. It was all, we just assumed it was a Chinese cartoon because we're like, yeah, that's probably Chinese. Like we can't read it.
Same thing.
But then at the end, like the Tsuzuku, it's something we talk about all the time, but that's something where, we would draw Mazinga in our notebooks and stuff. And then like some of us would write the Tsuzuku. We didn't know what it was, but it was easy to copy. Yeah. So we would do that, and we're like, oh, yeah, I know Chinese. Check it out. But yeah, I was around the same age when you discovered Karate Kid. I was around 6 or 7 as well. And I'd get up early in the morning. Like, that's one of the first cartoons that they showed on TV. I think it was Canal 9. I think it was Channel 9. And, like, you had to watch, like, a super, like, religious show. It was, like, on Saturdays or Sunday mornings, and it was a 700 Club. That's what it was. So like you had to sit through the 700 Club just to watch your cartoons, and then when you're a kid, you're up, you're awake, and you're just like, okay, it's time for cartoons, and then you look and it's like 3 hours to go, and there's nothing else to do. There's no internet, there's no iPads, there's none of that stuff. So then you just turn the TV on, and even the channels, like cable wasn't huge back then. In Argentina, there were maybe 7 channels that everybody watched, and then some people had cable and stuff. But so you just whatever was on, you would watch. And the 700 Club was like super boring to me as a 6-year-old. I'd just sit there and like I don't remember what the guy's name was, but like man, that guy was on that show for like decades. Damn. Because later on, like I saw him on TV, and it was the same guy, but he was like decades older. He was already up there in age when I was watching it as a kid. So finally, when it was over, then it was time for Mazinger Zeta, and it's like, oh man, that was the shit, dude. So like that's definitely the first time I thought about Japan. Eventually, like something was talked about Japan, and I'm like, okay, I love that cartoon. And later after that, I saw Transformers and all these American robot cartoons. But my first robot cartoon was Mazinger. And then the other thing I remember is, so there is Mazinger, and then there was a female robot, and her name was Aphrodite A. And like, and as a kid, here's the funny thing. Like as a kid, we watched the cartoon, we loved it. Thought nothing of it, but then I realized that was my introduction to like Japanese like weirdness and comedy, because Aphrodite A had Oppai, she had Oppai missiles, so she, like her breasts were rockets, and she would shoot them at the opponents, and I remember it was a whole thing. Like if I remember correctly, the first episodes, she just had 2 and that was it. So she would shoot them, and they'd explode. And then if the enemy was still there, then like she would take a beating. Then I think at some point she had like replenishing like boob bombs that would come out and shoot, and then they'd come out again. And then I remember this was like hilarious to us as kids, but also we kind of took it as like, oh, whatever, like that's what happens in this cartoon.
Yeah.
Like I remember not really questioning it a lot. I remember later on, like when I was in art school and I'd already like kind of lost interest in cartoons and that kind of stuff, like, you know, as a probably around 15 or 16, I liked to draw, but I wasn't watching stuff anymore. And then in college, all of a sudden I was surrounded by people that were also artists like me, but they also watched cartoons and they collected toys and stuff, which was new to me. I was like, okay. And then I started looking into anime again. And when I did, I had all these questions about why things were the way they were in anime. Like, why is this guy sweating? Why is he getting a nosebleed? What does this mean? I don't understand. Like, I found it confusing. But as a kid, in retrospect now, I realized like I wasn't questioning any of what I was seeing. I was just like, this is, exactly. And then I remember there was this one part of the Aphrodite A Oppai Misairu saga where like there was an airborne enemy and, you know, Mazinger couldn't fly. So he's getting his ass kicked, you know? And so they're like, oh, you know, they're like talking to the scientist. He's like, we must do something different. We must design something to allow him to be just as formidable in the air as he is on the ground. And so what their solution to this issue was give an Aphrodite A bigger boob bombs, and then she would shoot them, and Mazinger would run ahead of her. He would start running, and then, you know, he's like, go, and then like she would shoot them, and then he would run and catch them, and he would ride them. He would fly and riding them, and I remember the pilot, I think her name was Sayaka, like Koji. Kabuto Koji was the pilot for Mazinger.
Fix the fence, Koji.
That's why whenever I hear Koji, all I can think of is Mazinger.
Yeah.
Like even when I met people who named Koji in Japan, I was like, Kabuto Koji.
Shit. Oh my God.
And they're just like, oh, what? They're like, what's this guy's problem? Yeah. So the Aphrodite A pilot was Sayaka. And, you know, she didn't like all these modifications that were being made to her robot. She's like, you guys, like,
come on,
I don't like this at all. Yeah, chill. But then they tried the boob, like, you know, Mazinger flying thing a couple times, you know, and eventually they perfected it. So they made her boob bombs really big, and then on the point of the boob bombs there were buttons, so it looked like nipples. And then Mazinger would run, catch him, and then when he needed the second boost, he would press the nipple button.
Actually.
And then like it would be like a Nas boost. Yeah, dude.
Double throttle, just full throttle.
Yeah. Eventually, they built like a pack where you could fly. Yeah, a jetpack. But that's how they started it. And I remember, man, we loved it as kids. We thought it was hilarious. But now thinking about it, I'm like, that's very Japanese, like kind of like humor / like, oh, it's justified because the science behind, you know, these battle tactics. We need all this stuff. But, you know, at the end of the day, I imagine it's, I don't know if Nagai, the creator of the manga, or at least the artist of the manga, I don't know if he created the character, and I guess I'll look it up. But maybe he's just messing around, and he's like, okay, this is hilarious. You know, I don't know if
this
it's a
was
gag
back in the day too, so I'm pretty sure everybody was like, それでいいよ, それでいい. Hold up, like, yo, we have to air this tomorrow. それでいい. まあ早くやって.
Yeah, I remember that from my childhood for sure. And yeah, Mazinger Z. That was the bomb. Tsuzuku. Yeah. Anybody who knows Mazinger Z, please comment down below.
Please.
And tell us your favorite parts of that cartoon.